Is working now?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, carry on. Sorry, my mistake. First, the invocation verse. Rupam drishyam lochanam drak tadrishyam draktumanasam drishyadhi sakshi drige vanatu drishyate. We saw last class that this whole creation comes about from Brahman, the supreme reality, the entire substratum for this creation. That is what we call as Satchidananda Swarupa. So from this Satchidananda comes the creation. But when it comes out, there has to be some factor behind that creation. So we call that factor as the Maya. So Brahman taking Maya and begins the creation. And this point kind of correlates to how Bhagavan Shri Krishna's birth was also. When Bhagavan was to come out as a manifestation on this creation, as an avatar, he first sends his Maya. And he says to the Maya that go and first delude all the people who are there in the prison, all those the guards in the prison. So everybody fell asleep automatically. Then he went, and then the Maya went and deluded even the mother in whose womb the Maya was. And then Maya came out, Bhagavan came out, exchange happened. And all of a sudden, Maya left. But under whose command Maya did all of this? And that is the command of Bhagavan only. So it kind of shows this very ironic way that who is the one who is masterminding all of this? And that we call as the Ishvara. The one who makes sure that the creation has to happen in this way. So that Shri Krishna as an avatar is the manifestation of that Brahman. So Brahman is what we call here as the Satchidananda. And this Satchidananda, with the help of Maya, begins the creation. So when Bhagavan, or when the Ishvara begins the creation, then he needs two powers, two Shakti. The first Shakti that was elaborated was the Vikshepa Shakti, the projecting power. And what is this projecting power? Is the ability to manifest in different ways, different things that are there. Infinite amount of possibilities that can come about. That is what is meant by Vikshepa. Vividha Kshipati, in different forms it creates. For us, we see only 5 things because we have 5 senses. But that same thing can be seen in a different spectrum itself by a different being. So therefore, one thing, but is seen in different ways by different beings. This is the power of Vikshepa. And the second power is the power of Avarana, the veiling power. By veiling, the words can be misguiding, it feels. When we think of the word veiling, it seems like there is a curtain that is hidden somewhere. And then all I have to do is lift this curtain and I will be able to see Brahman. So therefore, when we think about Avarana and I have to remove this Avarana, I'm thinking I have to do something to remove something. And honestly, then the thought comes here is, It's not that we have to remove the veil, it is just a different outlook towards how we are seeing the world. The moment we change that outlook, our avarana gets removed. So, what is this avarana? What is this veiling that is caused? So, the power is making us not see the reality. And that reality, then by the projecting power, is seen as something different. So, when I say not seeing the reality, what do we mean? We see a stream of water. Yet, the first focus is it's a river, or it's an ocean, or it's a sea. But then we forget that it's nothing but water. When it started from the top of Himalaya, it was water. And when it came and reached the ocean plain, then also it was water. So ocean itself is name, river itself is a name, but it doesn't change the dynamic of what water is. We look at a piece of cloth like this, a cotton. The whole focus goes on the design. Well, this one doesn't have any design, but y'all are wearing, everyone's wearing some t-shirt or some shirt that has different design on it. So sometimes when you wear something new, right now Krishna Janmashtami went. So if you must have worn some nice clothes, then you must have gotten some Facebook likes. Nice picture. The focus went on what? The design. The focus went on the color. That is what is avarana doing. It is hiding from us the reality by not really putting any veil or not really putting any covering, but it makes the specificity so apparent that the generality gets missed. It makes the name and form so clear that the essence behind the name and form, that gets missed. And in that, we create more problems. Because we then get attached to the names and form, and that is why we are getting lost. So there the author in shloka number 15 is saying that, look, what is the cause for this samsara? Avrunotya aparashakti, this other type of power, this the veiling power is the power which is the cause for my samsara, which is the cause for me to stay in this transmigratory realm. Because now I have not perceived the reality, so therefore I am perceiving something limited. And because I am perceiving something limited, I want to go for that unlimited happiness, which is inherent in me. I cannot get rid of it. It's my nature. So therefore, in order to get that unlimited, I then start going out to the world. I then create likes and dislikes. So this is the cause for samsara. So samsara means samyak sarati. Sara means to move, but the word sometimes is used with a snake moving, a slithering. So it is like this. The entire samsara, it changes, it crawls, and with it, it drags everything. So therefore, everything in this creation is changing. And with that change, we are attached. And that is what is causing us to be in this cycle. So now to explain this idea further, how does this avarana shakti work? What is its hold on us? And then how can a person free themselves from this? That is the next topic taken up by the author. And if you remember what is the topic of this text, it is called Drshya Vivek. So it is doing a distinguishing between what is the Drshya and what is a Drik. So therefore it will clarify for us that distinction. But also the name of the text is Vakya Sudha, the nectar of Mahavakya. So it is going to combine the thought of the individuality and the thought of totality. Both of them has to be combined to see that Brahma, Aham Asmi. I am that Brahman. So what is happening at the individual level is also happening at the total level. The power of Avarana at the total level and the power of Avarana at the individual level is therefore explained in the next 4 shlokas. So that's what we will look at now. Sakshina purato bhati lingam dehena samyutam chitichhaya samaveshat जीवस्याद् व्यावहारिकः साक्षिणः पुरतो भाति लिंगम देहेन संयुतं चितिच्छाया समावेशात् जीवस्याद् व्यावहारिकः. Sakshinah Puratah. So if you remember, the Jiva was mentioned as the Satchidananda at the level of Jiva was mentioned as Sakshi. So here therefore the reference now is towards the individual. So this Sakshi, this Satchidananda, Puratah, in front of it. So in front of what is there is not real. It's the false. It's the illusion. So Sakshinaha Purataha Bhati Lingam. So in front of this Sakshi, there is the Lingam. Lingam means the Ahankara thought and the Antahkarana thought. Right? So the two things that were mentioned in elaborate details in the previous shlokas, that is what is shining in front of the Sakshi. So what is this veiling really happening here? That is what is being explained. You know, Gurudev many times had said this, that behind the thought curtain is the self. So this is what is happening. There is a curtain of our thoughts, which is the lingam, which is the ahankara thought, the I thought and the instrument thought. And that is what is shining. But how is it shining? It is not shining on its own power. It is shining because of the light of the Sakshi. Dehena samyutam. And the moment the Sakshi, the moment I thought becomes alive, it goes and lends its sentiency to the body. So therefore it is also uniting the body along with it. So dehena samyutam. So connected with the body, united with the body. Chitichhaya samaveshat. When did all this begin? So it began when the reflection of consciousness very well entered. So whatever we have studied thus far, it's kind of summarizing this entire idea again here. But then it says, Jivaha syat vyavaharikaha. From this is born Jiva, who is vyavaharikaha, transactional. So this is the entire definition of my life story. Every one of our life story. How did I come about? This is how I came about. There was a reflection of consciousness. That reflection of consciousness enlivened the mind, which from came the I thought, the instrument thought, which then passed its I-ness to the body, and then body started becoming sentient. But behind all of this, who is there? Behind all of this is Sakshi. So Avarana Shakti has done this for us. When we were children, if you think about this, we didn't know who we were. We didn't know what this body really even meant. But guess what happened to us? Our parents said, you know, who are you? So then I used to say nothing. I'm sure you also used to say nothing. Then the parents said, you are Dhiren, or you are this person, you are that person. So it became very firm for me that I am this embodiment. Okay. Then that was not enough. So then said, show me your eyes. Where does your eye is? Where is your eyes? So then I have to point to the eyes. Then said, where is your nose? So there is a nose. Where is your ears? Like that. So I have to point out all the parts of my body, right? And this enforced more upon me the idea of who I am as individuality. Then you grow up more, and then all of a sudden you're now, in school, and again more and more emphasis goes on into making this jiva stronger. That what do you have to become? You have to become either a doctor or an engineer. It is not enough that you just pass high school. So therefore now focus on your studies. After studies are over, what do you have to become? You have to become a person who is working. Staying at home and being a bum is not a good life. So therefore I have to go out and get money. Then when you start getting a job and you have a job, then again an enforcement comes. What do you have to become? You have to be married. You cannot stay single your whole life. You have to have a family. So then again another bang comes. Then again another thought comes. What do you have to become? You have to be a family person. Two is not enough. 2 plus 2 has to be there. So then 2 plus 2 becomes 4. Then the opposite direction comes. Then the bang doesn't come from parents, then comes from the kids. That I have to model myself in some way, I have to behave in some way. And in this way, the whole life cycle happens. But when all of this is happening, the interesting thing is, all of this was going, the person who was going through was the jiva. It is the mind that was going through this. It is the body that was going through the rigorous efforts to make sure that certain tasks get accomplished. Yet when they do get accomplished, it gets put on me, the self. It gets put on the Sakshi. And this is what the Avarana is doing. When we have a gold ornament, right? The gold never changed. The only thing that changed is the name and form on it. The gold is just modifying into forming into different name and different form. But the entire time, the substratum is the same, and that is that gold. Similarly, a pot never changes its clay. It is always, the clay is the same. You make it a pot, you make it a, uh, uh, some different vase or anything from pot, a china dish. So whatever you change it into, that is just changing of the names and forms. And what we have done is we have put that upon ourselves and saying that that is me, the self. So then it creates, the vikshepa then comes about and creates the identity that this nose is not really looking so good. Maybe this nose would be good if it were a little pointy. Or maybe my ears are not looking so nice. It would have been good if it were like a PK ear, you know, that movie where the ears are a little wider. Maybe it would have been good, something like that. I could hear everything from this world. We start creating likes and dislikes. And this likes and dislikes is now keeping us enforced in this samsara. So the avarana shakti here, this is what it is trying to do, is projecting upon us that which is not the reality of ourself. The properties of the body are put on the self. The properties of the senses are put on the self. The properties of the mind, intellect, all of it is put on me and the self. And how do I know that I am the self and not these properties? Is because I am aware of the independent existence. I am aware of the existence of me without these equipment. I'm aware of it. I'm just not seeing it. What do you see when you look at this? You know, what did you see? If you said you saw, Sukumarji, you were going to share?
I mean, you can see words, ink, book, paper, image.
Okay. So word, book, paper, different things you can name, right? But when you think of this, the first thing that came to mind was either letters written in there, right? But we do not think about the whiteness of it. The page may seem easy to notice because it has name and form. But without the whiteness on the book, the letters are meaningless. So what is more general, that gets veiled. And this is what is meant as the avarana. Because it is there. So we don't need to worry about it. That's what we think. So therefore we don't focus our attention on it. And the focus goes on the letters. So what is veiled really happened? When you look at the book, it's not that you're not looking at the whiteness. You are looking at the whiteness. When I am thinking of me, the Satchidananda, it is not that I don't know about me. But what happens is I focus more on the mind. I focus more on the intellect. I focus more on the senses. I focus more on the body. And therefore, the self gets veiled. So this is what the Avarana Shakti is doing. And it is causing me to be Jiva. Vyavaharika. So by Vyavaharika, this idea comes about is I'm becoming transactional. I'm therefore having this likes and dislikes. I was just having some food today, and I was thinking to myself, how did I come to notice that a particular food is spicy or non-spicy, or whether it was salty or unsalty. A like or a dislike was created by having a consistent level of food that was being prepared in the house. From a childhood, if somebody were to have eaten really spicy food, for them, a like has been created that I like spicy food. Now, then that person were to go to a different place where they get non-spicy food, they will not like it because an attachment was created to something. And if from the beginning that vasana itself was not there, then from the beginning itself, the food may have been different only chosen. But then over a period of time, that focus has been more on that. So that like has been developed. But who is it a like for? It is not the like for the self. It is the like for the mind. It is the like for the intellect. It is not for the self. Right now, who is studying? If we think about it, it is not the self who is studying. The self is not needing the knowledge. It is me, the mind, me, the intellect, that feels that I need this knowledge for liberation. And that's the difference. And that is what Jiva is. So this is the story of our life. Now, how can a Jiva come out of this? That's the explanation in the next one. Asya jivattvamaropat sakshinyapyavabhasate avruto tu vinashtayam भेदे भाते पयाति तत् अस्य जीवत्वमारोपात् साक्षिण्यप्यवभासते आवृतो तु विनष्टायां भेदे भाते पयाति तत् asya of this jiva, right? The jiva mentioned in the last shloka, of this jiva, jivatvam. So jivatvam is the notions of likes and dislike, the notions of I am somebody other than Satchidananda. These are the notions that we were talking about. So this jivatvam is aropa, has been superimposed. So when this jivahood, the individuality, gets superimposed, sakshini api avabhasate. It makes the sakshi appear as this way. That is what the point is. Avabhasate, appear. Sakshini, in the sakshi. So the individuality is at the realm of jiva. That is the transactional reality, the vyavaharika reality. And that gets superimposed on the sakshi. And after having superimposed, it makes us think that this is who sakshi is. This is the nature of sakshi. This is my nature. I was born ignorant. And this is how a person then feels. And then avruto tu vinashtayam, when this avarana has been destroyed and the veiling has been removed, bhede bhate, the bheda, the distinction between who is jiva and who is sakshi, that becomes very clear. Bhate, when it becomes known, apayati tat, that is removed, that is destroyed, meaning the jiva hood is destroyed, the veiling is destroyed. Okay. So what has to happen here? I took the jiva hood because of wrong notion. Therefore, in order for me to remove the jiva hood, I need to know. Knowledge is what is required. And that knowledge is the knowledge of I am Brahman. The self in me, the Satchidananda in me, is the same Satchidananda in everything in this creation. Other than me, there is nothing. Other than me, the Satchidananda, there is nothing. Actually, in Satchidananda is everything. And when we say that in Satchidananda everything is, we do not mean A is equal to B. That I am the Satchidananda, I am that consciousness, which is also the consciousness in you, and both are alike. It is not an equal to property sign. Because when you say equal to, all you are basically saying is their properties are same, but they are not same in all cases. If you say infinity is equal to infinity, then how will that work? Because there cannot be two infinities. If there are two infinities, then how could there be possible? What is delimiting it? What is it limiting that infinity to make it equal? So it doesn't make sense. Similarly, in our equation of Satchidananda, when we say Aham Brahma Asmi, that knowledge is not telling that the Brahman in me is similar to, or the Satchidananda in me is similar to the Satchidananda in everybody, but it is saying that there is this Satchidananda which is getting limited because of the equipment that I am, the body, mind, and intellect. That equipment makes me feel I am limited. Okay. When I break this limitation, when I break away from this identity with the jiva, that is what is called as jivatvam. So when I break away from the likes and dislikes, when I break away from the desires of the body, desires of the mind, desires of the intellect, all of these have been removed, then I come to know my true nature. And tat apayati, the jivatvam goes away for that person. That person is no longer bound by the limitations created by the equipment. Now, the same idea is taken up from the perspective of the totality. How the Avarana Shakti works at the level of total, and how destruction of this Avarana Shakti at the total causes me to see the oneness. तथा सर्ग ब्रह्मणोश्च भेदमावृत्य तिष्ठति या शक्तिस्तद्वया तद्वशात् ब्रह्म विकृतत्वेन भासते. तथा सर्ग ब्रह्मणो भेदमावृत्य तिष्ठति या शक्तिस्तद्वशात् ब्रह्मा विकृतत्वेन भासते. Tatha, thus, in the same way that it was explained in the previous two shlokas of how the Avrana Shakti, how the mind, the aham, sorry, the lingam, along with the body, gets emerged as the jiva, and by that jiva not recognizing its nature, and on it the superimposition happens of the jivatva, the individuality. In that same way, tatha, this is how that idea has to come about. So whatever the two shlokas previously were mentioned, in that same way, sarga brahmanah cha. Sarga means the creation, the universe, and brahmana, Brahman. Of the two, bhedam, the distinction, avritya tishtati. The avrana shakti is hiding the distinction between what is Brahman and what is creation. Right? So again, this idea is that when we look at creation, we focus on the names and form. That's where our attention goes. But we never focus on that object is, that creation is. Without that isness, that object can never be. It can never exist. So there is something that is giving it an existence, and therefore that which is lending that existence is more real. And this distinction gets veiled by the Avrana Shakti. Ya Shakti, the Avrana Shakti, Tadvashad Brahmaha. Now, it says that Vashad Brahmaha, it does not mean that Brahma has been controlled by this Avrana Shakti. But it seems though that it is being influenced by this veiling power. Vasha means to control. So tad vashad, the avrana shakti vashad. So Brahman seems to become influenced by that veiling power. And becoming influenced by that, vikritattvena bhasate. This Brahman is seen as multiple, in multitude. Right? When we say that, last week we were talking about this idea of everything in this creation has the nature of it is, it shines, and it has the factor of bliss. But that gets veiled and it comes out as this is, but it changes. Some are seen as jada, inert, and some are seen as sorrowful. Now it makes sense that when I look at myself, the individual, I say that there's consciousness in me. But when I look at an inert object like a phone or a pencil, I do not say that there is existence in this. I do not say that there is Satchidananda in this. But that's not fully true, because the false I, which is this ego that comes about, right? This false I is dependent on the Satchidananda. Okay, so if the false I is not seen, that does not negate the real I, the Satchidananda. Okay, if the false I is not seen, that does not negate the nature of the self, which is Satchidananda. But when the real I is present, then only the false I also can be present. In me, when the real I is there, then only the false I is showing itself, and in any jiva. But when we are in deep sleep, that's when we get to know that when this false I is not there, still I have the feeling of I am. Still I know that I was. If somebody comes and asks you that, was I there or was I not there? And then if you tell them, if you question this way, does that mean you were dead? They'll say, no, I was not dead. So then who is saying that who was not dead? If you feel that you were not there, but you also say you are not dead, that means you were there. Right? So therefore, this idea that the false I is not seen in a pencil or in this phone is because there is no mind there. There is no reflecting medium there. So therefore, they cannot shine. In the individual, in the jiva, they shine. So this is the only difference. But Satchidananda is there everywhere. So Vikritatvena bhasate means that this Satchidananda in this universe is also seen as sentient and insentient, Jada and Chaitanya. Okay? It's very wrong to just think that, okay, Satchidananda is only there in me and not in anybody, or in all the humans, but not in animals, because they do not have the mind or intellect capacity to know the self. So it's not barred by that. The self is not barred by that. The Satchidananda is not barred by that notion. So therefore, this is everywhere, but because the capacity to reflect is different, therefore it is seen different in the entire creation. So this distinction of Brahman and the creation is also veiled by this Avarana Shakti. Okay, now the final of this thought. Atrapyavrittinashena vibhati brahma sargayoho भेदस्तयोर्विकारस्यात् सर्गेण ब्रह्मणि क्वचित्. अत्राप्यावृत्तिनाशेन विभाति ब्रह्म सर्गयोः भेदस्तयोर्विकारस्यात् सर्गेण ब्रह्मणि क्वचित्. Atra api, here also. So just as one shloka ago, where it was saying that the veiling power is destroyed by the knowledge. Similarly, here also, atra api, here also, avritti nashena, by the destruction of this veiling power, vibhati, shines. Brahma sargayoho bhedaha. The bhedaha part is here. So the distinction between Brahman and the creation, that distinction is clearly known. Okay? When the Avritti Shakti is gone, the distinction becomes clear. So what is then become clear is tayoho vikaraha syat sarge. The modification has to go along with the creation. Na brahmani kvachit, but it is not with Brahman. All that modification was because of the creation, and it was not because of the Brahman. Brahman was always the same. Now, we talked about this example of the book and the writings on the book. Some letters on the book are bolded, right? Some are not bolded. Some letters have Sanskrit and some are just English written. Some are transliteration, right? But by that, did the paper change itself? Did the whiteness have to change for itself to accommodate something else? No, that stayed the same. In similar way, when the creation is happening, the Brahman is not changing itself to accommodate for it. Brahman is staying the same. In Brahman, then all these sort of modification seems to fit. And this thought again takes us back to this idea of pot space, house space, gold pot space. If a pot is big, like those big things that you use for water, or if it is a small vase for water, the space seems to be constricted. But is it really constricted? No, we know that. So the feeling that there is this small space only in this vase, or there's a big space, this is the illusion created about the space. This is the illusion created that Brahman is big or Brahman is small. Brahman is smart in human beings. Brahman is dull in animals. It doesn't happen that way. You can say, no, I know that Brahman is not smart and Brahman is not dull. That is fine. We know that. But we confuse Brahman to be with the creation. Therefore, we cannot tell the difference. That is what is happening. The Avarana Shakti has made us think that the world itself is real, and that reality has been projected onto Brahman. That is why it was said that this sakshinyapi avabhasate, when in the individual this projection is happening, it projects it onto the self, the Sachidananda in me, and it says that you are this way. Similarly, in the creation also, it is projecting it onto Brahman and saying that Brahman is going through this modification. So therefore, we never recognize Brahman as separate from the Jagat. And this is saying that Vikaraha Syat Sarge. The modification is on the world and not on Brahman. Brahman is completely untouched. Okay. When you go to watch, this is very interesting. When you go to watch a 3D movie, okay, in a movie theater, when we go to watch 3D movie, does the screen actually have to give that depression to make us see that something is popping out and it's just coming close to our eyes? The screen doesn't have to change. The screen itself is completely blank, just completely 2D, flat. But yet I am able to see a whole thing, a whole image. See what the light can have an effect on. It can give us an appearance of a 3D. But what is that an appearance on? It is only an appearance on the screen. So what did I think? I think that the whole screen moved. If I say like that, it would be a wrong thing. It would be not a good notion on my part. So this is how, by the destruction of the veiling power, one is able to clearly know that Brahman exists in all beings. One is to know that Brahman exists as this Sakshi, devoid of the ego, devoid of the body. And one is to know that Brahman exists in the creation without the modification of the creation. Okay. Now, it's easier for me to experience that Brahman exists here. Within the body, it's easier for me to experience because I can relate somewhat. But to a phone, how can we relate and say that this is like that? That Brahman is there. I don't see any Brahman here. I only see name and form. How does that work, that Brahman exists everywhere? So now the next thought that the Guru takes up for us is how there is the Sat, Chit, and Ananda that exists in all creation. This piece of equipment also has Ananda. Well, that we know. It's an iPhone, so obviously it has to have Ananda. But even a piece of dirt has an Ananda. How? That is what is going to be explained next. So now the distinction has been created of how this happens at the Jiva level and how it happens at the total level. By explaining the distinction, also what has been explained is when the Avrana Shakti is removed, we are able to see the distinctions clearly. How to remove that has not been explained yet. How does Avrana Shakti gets removed? That's not been explained yet. But it has said Avrana Shakti, when it is removed, we come to know. We know the answer. You all know the answer because Vedanta that we have studied has explained to us what is the knowledge required. The knowledge required is I am Brahman. How to see that I am Brahman? That is where the text will come to help us. So we will see that with our next class. So today we will not have time for any question answers. So if you have any thoughts, just please jot them down and maybe perhaps next time we can go through any questions. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Dhirenji, thank you very much. Hari Om.